I'm going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. Happy to be back this week with two of my favorite people in the world. Let's go ahead and introduce them, but we don't have to. We just like to do it anyway. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all, the senior editor of SureDog.com, and the big homie, Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing today?
I'm doing real well. I'm here locked in for the 1.5 weeks of fall weather we get here in Texas. Heading into the 4 weeks out of the year, I don't have to mow my lawn, so I'm enjoying it while it lasts.
All right, and of course, the man who anchors the panel every week with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of SureDog.com. Also, my good friend, Jay Petrie. How you doing today, Jay?
I am doing surprisingly well because all we have this weekend is one big event to cover, and that's that feels good. Feels good, man, because it's been a real kind of I wouldn't go so far as to say like a death march, but for some reason the UFC schedules its events so that there are fewer in the first half than the second half of the year, and so it has led to consecutive weekends of like 12 straight events, where 12 straight Saturdays of UFC coverage. So getting this rare Saturday off is going to feel real good. My stat of the week, because I guess we'll talk about the UFC because that dumpster fire of a card had a couple interesting things to say about it. 3 is a stat of the week because UFC Fight Night 215, Nzechukwu. Oh my God, I actually practiced this. Anyway, UFC Fight Night 215 is the third fight card in UFC history to feature multiple spinning knockouts, and that's pretty cool.
All the others have been with them in the last year or two, haven't they?
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Because
that was the only thing. It was like the saving grace of it's like putting the cherry on a garbage sundae. It's just like, well, at least the cherry's nice.
All right, that's a good stat of the week. Unfortunately, we have to take a turn outside of the sport, within our bubble, but not quite directly related to mixed martial arts. Jason David Frank, actor well known for his role as the Green and the White Power Ranger in the original iteration of the show that was very, very popular here and during my youth. He passed away at 49 years old. Parent suicide, from what we understand, was going through a rough divorce and unfortunately couldn't find a way to cope with things, if we are to believe the report. So briefly, anything you guys want to say? I mean, this guy was a true martial artist. Actually took some MMA fights. Like he actually stepped into the cage to compete with his traditional martial arts base. A figure of our childhoods in a lot of ways. What do we have to say about this, man?
Well, I mean, I can kind of see his work on a couple different levels. I'm a little too old to have come up on Power Rangers myself. I mean, Jason David Frank was basically my age, but he intersected with my kids' childhood closely enough that I can tell you that he was also the Black Ranger on either Power Rangers Ninja Storm or Power Rangers Dino Thunder. He was a Power Ranger on at least 3 of the series, but also, he was a fixture down here in Houston. He lived down here. He was a well-known figure. Like, I actually never interacted with him personally, but I know lots and lots of people who knew him. Like just somebody that it's just by chance that I never really rubbed elbows with him. And he's well regarded down here. His, Jesus Didn't Tap clothing line is, I mean, there have been years where it was basically as popular as Tap Out down here. A guy that was a legitimate martial artist, like a high-level competition karateka, probably just a little too old to have really gotten into mixed martial arts during his prime. Like me, he turned 30 the year of UFC 1, but did what he could and just clearly had like true love for the sport. It always adds a little extra layer to it when it's somebody that took their own life. So I certainly wish peace to the many, many people I know who knew him and will miss him.
Yeah, my buddy Yojimbo, who you guys are a little familiar with, attended a convention recently, and they didn't get to interact, but they were right near each other, and so it was kind of a moment to see, man, I just saw this guy, a week ago, or 2 weeks or whatever it may have been, and just like that. I'll try not to get emotional, but I feel like I am. Back when I was a real youngster, a real pest. I early grade school, so like primary school days. You're trying to find your way. You're trying to figure out what to do, because a lot of people want to start at football or little league or one of those things, wrestling or whatever. They want to start those kinds of things. So I'm at that age and I'm trying to figure out what to do. And so September 1993 rolls around and Power Rangers comes on TV, and it's the coolest thing in the world. Coolest thing. Oh my gosh, they're doing karate. Most of them actually know how to do karate. And some of them they're actors, but some of them, like JDF, was like an 8th degree black belt at the very, at the end there, and saw that this was really cool and it was popular. It wasn't like, oh, you do karate, you silly. It was like, oh man, that's really cool. So to do that, I decided to enroll in a local Shaolin Kempo school, and I rose the ranks, and black belt level in Shotomaru and Shaolin Kempo. And one of the things we were learning when we were kind of coming up is that back in the early days of the UFC, it was a lot of style versus style. So there would be karate guys fighting in their gis, or maybe just their gi pants, against these people. They might not have had gloves on. It was a real fight. It was really cool. So I'm 8 or 9 years old. It's not too gross, and we're already fighting, so our parents were okay with it, to be able to see some of these events go on. So there I am in my dojo watching old UFC fight cards. Like, I have a formative memory, whether I don't know if it was in the dojo or not. I just have the formative memory of the John Matua Tank Abbott UFC 6 show, seeing that live as a kid. What am I doing now with my life? I am a full-time MMA coverer. That I found my love for martial arts in part to Power Rangers and Jason David Frank. I am here now doing what I love in part because of that man. So I'm a little verklempt about it. I'm not going to lie. I never, great guy, never met him, but really I owe a lot to him. As a stranger, as a celebrity, as a guy I only watched on TV and wanted to be like. So it's not quite like I lost a hero, but kind of like I lost a hero. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, you know what, Jay? I'm glad you put it in that context. So I'm just a couple years older than you,
yeah,
and a couple years younger than Ben. So I'm kind of in the middle here. So Power Rangers wasn't like a dedicated part of my childhood, in the sense that I had to be in front of the TV to watch it every day. But my little brother was. My little brother was a faithful Power Ranger fanatic at that time for that original show. And he went on to, beg mom to put him in Taekwondo. He was there for like a few months, and then he found Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he trained there for a while and got pretty high up on a belt level. So that formed his basis for the work that he did for a little while. Now he's actually a first responder, but he's worked as a correction officer, and had to use some jiu-jitsu in the middle of the jail cell and everything. Like this is a guy who really knows what he's doing when it comes to a fight, and he owes part of that to Jason David Frank's work. I was more, the Ninja Turtles is kind of what pushed me more into that. I did enjoy watching Power Rangers with him just to see when they fought the putties. That was the part that I always wanted to. I hated when they would all combine and then like that one big strike would just destroy the monster. I'm like, just do that from jump and we wouldn't have to go through all this. But the putties was dope because it was like real fist fight. And I'm like, man, they look like ninjas. I was a ninja fanatic, man. They look like ninjas, and they were just beating up these ninjas. So it was cool. Like, but that was, I didn't even realize that was just a few months before, or 2 months or so before the first UFC, which I did watch, and I did understand what style versus style was. Granted, most of my combat sport fandom traces back more to boxing. But Jay, I probably felt the way you feel right now when Pernell Whitaker died.
Yep, that's a fair.
Yeah, to someone that their presence inspired you in a way, and you kind of start going in this direction. And you kind of have this in mind as you're going down your own path. And I think all three of us, people who have trained in combat disciplines and and done what we've done in that arena, can appreciate the presence of a Jason David Frank, someone who was able to inspire through what he was able to do. So rest in peace to him, man. Tragic loss for his family. 49, man, way too young. And it sucks that we're starting the show like this for the second week in a row.
It would be great to break this streak going forward.
Yeah, please let's break this streak next week, and let's just talk about combat sports without the tragedy attached to it. But I guess we'll bring just a slight bit of levity into things, because we almost had another death in the MMA's world right here. Like, Twitter almost passed away, and quite frankly might still be on the chopping block. There were reports that it was going to just go under any minute, and everybody kind of was saying their last goodbyes to Twitter. I'm thankful that I did not go with my initial instinct, which was to just spew off a bunch of ridiculous hot takes, things that I think that I will never share with you because I don't want to be canceled, because I definitely would have been canceled because Twitter was still running when I woke up. Were you mourning the potential loss of MMA Twitter?
It's funny. I wasn't mourning. Yes and no. I was mourning the our side of MMA Twitter. Like, I wasn't mourning the side of the, you can name names and the squabbles and the back and forth. I mean, I've become friends with some of them that are stalwarts on that. But I mourned. I had been mourning the loss of. I felt like I had finally made some sort of a little brand of myself. Like, the goal when I worked at Vice, when I worked at Fightland, was to do kind of like what Jack Slack did, and build an audience that wants to see what you do. And this is one of the first things that my editor explained to me, is that this is what we want to do with you at Vice, is to build that. And I did to a degree, and I had a little bit of a following, but I don't have an Instagram, so it didn't translate over. We posted that. But the connections were I would miss, but more importantly, it would make doing my job a lot more difficult without Twitter. And I really came to terms with that in a way I didn't expect, to think, oh, wow, I get a lot of information about events. If I work with a Fight Finder team or just covering news on a regular basis, anything like that, Twitter changed the way that news happens in a lot of the spheres, not just sports or combat sports. So yeah, I felt it. I felt kind of like reeling almost. So I'm okay that it's still rolling, even if it's now a wretched hive of scum and villainy. But it always was.
It wasn't exactly over moderated before. Yeah. I guess I was curious to see what would come next, because a lot of the chatter I heard from people who use Twitter either to receive or disseminate combat sports news, ironically reminded me of what a lot of like right-wing commentators said right up until the point Musk bought it. Like, every time they felt canceled or muzzled, they'd be like, well, I'm going to Parler, or I'm going to Truth. And they go over there and like yell into a void with 50 people in it and quietly come back to Twitter. And, a lot of my MMA people were like, well, how's Mastodon? Like, do we need to just have a Discord server with 3,000 of us there? Like, there's all these ridiculous contingencies. But here we are, just kind of watching it limp along. And are we hoping it lives? Are we hoping it dies? Like, I don't know how we feel about it. But yeah, it it would take the job back a few years. Like when I started, even on a semi-professional basis at SureDog, the equivalent at the time of manning the wires was I had so many contingent Google alerts based on keywords, so that I would know 24 hours a day if something seemed to be breaking on literally like 400 topics. And I muted those just as Twitter became more and more of the news desk of MMA, for better or for worse. If that goes away, it'll be interesting to see what comes next.
Yeah, that was sort of the question mark for me. Like, what would replace it? Because every other social media yeah, I know, right? Like, I saw the MySpace coming. Like poor Tom. Like, Tom should be making a comeback. Tom wanted nothing but us to just enjoy a song and our top 8 friends.
He wanted you to enjoy a song whether you wanted to or not.
Yeah. Like, wanted everyone to enjoy your song. I think it would just be kind of weird. Like, what would the Fight Night experience be without that live tweeting? For a lot of us, because that was one of my favorite parts about watching an event live. It's like, all the little silly thoughts that I have in a tweet about them. And when I felt like I was going to say something that maybe should not have gone out to the universe, I might text one of you guys, or back when I was at SureDog, I'd hit the Slack chat with it, and hopefully someone doesn't leak what I said or whatnot. But Twitter has become a very integral part of what we do in the combat sports arena, as it has in other forms of disseminating information. Like, I think that, like, my role at MMA On Point started from Twitter. I got DM'd by Jason Hartley. He liked an article or something that I wrote, and he wanted to compliment me on it and said, "Hey, would you mind, writing a little bit for us?" And that's how it started. By the way, I'm back at MMA On Point, everyone. So yeah, that's official now. Even other people at MMA On Point, like Mac Molly, like his whole persona has been built via Twitter. Like, Twitter has opened the doors for a lot of people to do what they love, and that's fantastic. It'll be interesting to see if things take a nosedive. Because we're still within, like, the time window that we were told that Twitter could just drop out, and we know there's been a lot of turmoil among their personnel, so we never know. But I personally was, like, just feeling a little nostalgic, like, oh man, like, I didn't realize how kind of cool and important a lot of this was. So a few people I reached out to, like, hey, here's my contact info just in case the bottom falls out. This is how you can reach me. Because there are some people you like to keep around, like to see how they're doing. Certain connections, like I had to hit up Pete Carroll. I had to hit him up because all of our interactions have only really been via Twitter. So, like, hey, here's my info, man. Like, that sort of thing. I reached out to Ben Folks, guy I've respected forever, and has, without realizing it, helped kind of push me along in this journey. So it has provided a lot, and thankful it's still here. Hopefully it lasts, and if it doesn't, let's move to the alternative and make it work there, gentlemen. So let's keep things pushing, because we do have some actual mixed martial arts to talk about. You alluded to it a bit earlier, Jay, in your stat of the week. There was a lot of spinning stuff going down, but was the UFC Vegas 65 card from the Apex Center, was this one of the worst cards the UFC has ever put on, gentlemen?
Go ahead, Ben.
Well, on paper, yes. Like, ultimately, there has to be divisional relevance. Like, if you throw me a card with no ranked fighters on it, or one ranked fighter, I mean, I've said this on the show before, even if it's all knockouts, if all I care about are knockouts without divisional relevance, I can go to break.com. I can go to, or, like, less flippantly, I can go to a local show, because the lower the level of the fighters, the higher the finish rate. That's a very consistent statistic throughout mixed martial arts. So the fights have to matter. And most of these fights didn't matter except to the participants. You had a main event between two promising but inconsistent fighters who, I mean, the winner might have like might be ranked somewhere between 18 and 25. That's saying something considering how thin light heavyweight is. And one of those guys, I've decided is not turning the corner anymore. Iwan Cutelaba just is who he is. I don't care that he's 28. I don't care that he is a fucking standout athlete. He's just not a good fighter. It's like I don't know what to say.
I mean, he's becoming like OSP to me, like a guy who clearly is athletically an outlier, just an incredible athlete, has a lot of tools there, but just can't put it together with any level of consistency and really no real discernible development either that you'd want from someone that is expected to climb the ranks. So he's OSP as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, was this one of the worst fight cards in your opinion?
Well, Cutie had that what was it, when he fought Devin Clark and totally out wrestled him, and I'm like, okay, because we knew he could take the people down and we knew he could do it well, but it was that moment of, okay, maybe just maybe we're going to transform him to stop being a weird berserker that doesn't know what the heck he's doing, doesn't manage his gas tank, gets hit way too much, makes mental mistakes, and ends up getting finished as a result. What happened in this fight card? I have taken to what Ben introduced to me years ago of, who is the closest to a way to a title shot. And when the one ranked fighter on the fight card has a UFC record that rose to 500 with an upset win over a woman that, she's been on a run, but against, not the best competition, and has an extremely, she won a round over Valentina Shevchenko and lost the rest of the fight convincingly. So like, there's no path for her, unless she wins a dozen fights. Almost, I kind of being a little hyperbolic by saying dozen more, but not really. To get a title fight for Jennifer Maia, she would have to clean out most of the division. And as we know, as she keeps losing to, the top 5 in the division, it's probably not going to happen. So that makes it so this card is it's not just a seat filler, but it's a, roster cleaner, kind of a pink slip derby that they hope that they can put a couple fighters on losing streaks losing. And Duffy, also, you talked about on the preview about how 5 of the fighters were coming into this event having lost their appearance on Dana White's Contender Series, further diminishing the importance of that organization. If the fighters are still getting signed, they win on the regionals and they get here anyway, then what the heck is the point to it?
It's that where it's gone from you have to be the most impressive winner to just you have to be a winner to if you lose, okay, you go back to your native promotion, you win one more and we'll call you anyway. One more. So it's become almost literally meaningless. And it's become this tiered thing where if you get to the UFC through the Contender Series, unless you're Bo Nickel, you enter Dana White Saturday Night Contender Series, which is the undercards of these fight nights. And you have to, you get a 4-fight contract, and you probably have to go 3-1 or at least a good 2-2, even to get a 12-12 contract and maybe get onto the undercards of some better cards. So like there's like this stratified, there's almost like a UFC ghetto that you have to like UFC purgatory that you have to pass through. So yeah, like the Contender Series was brilliant for a while because it cut out the middleman.
Exactly.
It almost helped regional promotions because it stopped just chopping they chopped the head off the LFA middleweight division like 6 times in a row.
Yeah.
Like just, and obviously they gutted Invicta in like 2015, 2016. The Contender Series almost bettered that because it would take the really promising, really young ones that were only like 5-0 or 6-1 and let them circumvent that. And so it wouldn't interrupt the competitive structure of good regional promotions, but that's burned itself down.
Oh yeah.
Now it's cut out the middleman, and it's like it's cut the bottom out of the UFC itself. Like the term UFC level fighter has become
it means nothing.
Been a joke. But here it means nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Yeah.
We have I'm not to jump too far ahead on the schedule, but we have multiple people fighting on Friday at PFL. Like Stevie Ray and Olivier Aubin-Mercier were cut from the UFC with 7-5 and 7-4 records, cut off of wins. And they were cut because they were more expensive, not because they weren't good. Like UFC level has kind of ceased to mean anything.
UFC level means you're willing to fight for the bargain basement price. That's essentially what it means at this point with the Contender series. I can't remember who it was that coined the phrase like the puppy mill
Yeah,
of
we were talking
MMA.
about that.
Yeah, like that seems to be what this card represents, and I think the UFC was well aware of the quality of product that they were putting out here. So it started early, which I'm never going to be opposed to, but it started early enough to where, at least in my household, I didn't even realize it was on. And then when I did, it was like, okay, the kids just had breakfast. They want to watch Toy Story for the 30th time. So we'll sit down and watch that a little bit. And then when they take their nap, then I'll turn things on. By the time I actually turned it on, I mean, it had been announced maybe a half hour before that Derek Lewis and Sergey Spivak were out. So then I just laughed as I'm like, do I even want to turn this on?
Yeah.
Like that was really the only attraction for me was that main event, which I kind of wasn't even that attracted to anyway. It was just the possibility of Derek Lewis dislodging someone's head from their shoulders, or him finally, kind of getting that wake up call that says, hey, your run is over. So I was like, that was the only intriguing part to me. Without that, I mean, it was comically bad as far as what we were offered on paper. There was some action, but hey, you put people in the cage and have them fight each other. Yeah, action probably is going to happen at some point. But that's something that you realize after the fact. This whole Ben, you hit it right on the head. If you just want to see knockouts, you just want to see people just banging away, then go to a local show. You'll find plenty of that. We came here for the top quality of that, and that certainly was not what was offered to us on Saturday. But I guess if you're going to put on a card like this was probably the best time to do it after a big pay-per-view, although I'd prefer that they would give that pay-per-view a little bit of time to breathe.
Yeah.
But I mean, this one, you put it on earlier. It's coming up on a holiday. I'm sure the UFC staff is exhausted and ready to just take a week off and spend some time with their families, God forbid. I guess you had to get it out the way, so be it.
This was a let's get to 42 event.
Yeah, this was contractual obligations right here. But I mean that, while it was crazy to see Derek Lewis and Spivak get pulled literally as the event is going on, like a half hour before the main card was supposed to start. The biggest news did not come from that failed attempt at a main event. The biggest news came from something on the undercard, a post-fight speech from Miles John, where he let it spill that James Krause, the recently retired UFC welterweight, known serious gambler, coach and trainer, was pulled from his corner. And then we got more details. New Jersey's gaming commission has made it very clear to sportsbooks you are not to take bets on any fight that James Krause is involved in any capacity. Yeah. It sounds like it's hitting the fan, fellas. What's going on?
I'm a little confused on one point, that John's brought it to light, and we wouldn't have known. We would have had no idea. Like, even us that are deep into this would have not known, because the UFC had tried desperately to keep it, the cards close to the vest, I guess, pun intended here. That John's was pulled on Friday night. Like, this investigation had been started the day after Minner versus Shai Ilan, which was 2 weeks ago. And so the UFC decided to pull this fight, or pull this coach, which happens to be Krause, the day before the fight, because he was the subject of an investigation, or one of his fighters were subject to an investigation. So if this was the plan, why did the UFC have to wait and disrupt the whole situation of Miles Johns? Is it because they wanted to allow him to have a full fight camp and then pull the rug out from underneath him? I don't understand why this specific time was the right time to pull him. Like, I mean, I guess if you want to say there's no good time for the fighter because you're disadvantaging a fighter that may or may not have done anything wrong or was unrelated to this whole incident in Miles Johns, he's just another guy there. But if this was a policy type of change or situation the UFC brought to it, it rang really strange that they just suddenly went, okay, all right, you've weighed in, so get out of here. Your fighter has weighed in, so coach, get out of here.
Jay, I'm sorry to cut you off there. So,
please.
From my understanding, it was the athletic commission.
They were at dinner.
Well,
it was both. It was a meeting of discussion of whatever. I don't know if the UFC actually came out and said that they did it unilaterally, but the point is this was a situation that had been ongoing for 2 weeks, and then two on five. We're there. I don't remember. I don't have it right down in front of me. At 281, were there any Glory MMA fighters that fought last week? I don't know.
Not that I remember.
I don't think so, but it's an odd situation, and the fact that also the New Jersey, the commission, the betting agency, whatever it may be, included fights that James Krause promotes. James Krause runs FAC, Fighting Alliance in Kansas City. They run on Fight Pass. So no FAC fighting. FAC had made it onto like best fight odds because when they were like struggling to get any events going on. So FAC made it onto the best fight odds list. So that you can't bet on those in New Jersey. Now New Jersey's one state, but it is a big state,
major regulatory state,
major state that comes through
for gambling and combat sports in general.
It's the East Coast Vegas.
Yeah.
Well, it's the originator of the unified rules.
Yes, exactly. And I believe Vegas has said we aren't taking any action right now on Krause because we're still investigating. But where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, yes, you can say that the commission or whomever is taking the abundance of caution, but New Jersey can make that declaration. You don't just do that just when we're thinking about it. This wasn't a suspension. This was a clear, this wasn't a temporary, we will lift this upon further investigation. It was you cannot bet on any fights involved with this fighter or with his coach or the team. I mean, because it says anybody who coaches or trains with, which is by extension means the entire Glory MMA team. I mean, you can't say, well, I don't get any floor time with Krause, so I'm not in. No, this means every single fighter. Now, does that mean we're no longer going to see, I don't know, Tim Elliott's probably fighting soon, isn't he? I don't know other Glory fighters, but Glory is a major team.
Yeah.
So this is not we are well beyond, there's something strange going on here. And I find it fascinating. And I raised this to Duffy, I think last night or whenever we talk all the time about how I don't recall this happening when an actual fight fixing scandal broke with Tayun Bong and Leo Kuntz when
the old Bang Kuntz fight.
Yes, exactly. When Bong took actual money to throw the fight, he ended up winning the fight because he wanted to, whatever, he went his own way, but he went to jail for 10 months, I believe, or something like that. And he's a member of Korean Top Team. Korean Top Team is not small. There are UFC fighters from Korean Top Team. I don't remember any action happening in 2017, public or otherwise, about that team when actual fight fixing was not just investigated, but proven, and there were convictions from it. So I don't understand a lot of what's happening, but it's really, really, really ugly. This is the worst case scenario for the UFC right now, because bringing in U.S. integrity was a really tough thing. And I forget the second one that the UFC brought in too. I can't remember the name of it. It's not William Hill, but there's another betting agency like that came in to investigate this situation as well. Like you have to, as a promotion, avoid the appearance of impropriety in any fashion. You can't have there be any questions, any cloud of suspicion, any doubt. There cannot be, because once you cross that line, it's really hard to come back. PFL to my understanding, there are still sports books that do not offer lines on these events. And because of the tape delay scandal that happened in Challenger Series. So this is 5-alarm fire for the UFC, and whether it's the UFC's fault or not, whether the UFC staff or whatever had knowledge of these situations, they're racking up. The last thing I want to say, I'm going really long here because there's a lot to talk about, is that before Lewis withdrew from the fight, there was a 2-hour or so period on the fight card itself. After the fights had started, prelims started, the fight was canceled right after the Johns fight, Derek Lewis's fight, which is why it was a very big back-to-back. So there was like a 2-hour period of the UFC is going on and Lewis is still fighting on the card. At that time, early on, word had gotten out that Lewis was in trouble. He had gone to the hospital, or he was sick, or something was happening, and the betting line for Spivak shot up. It went from something like minus 170 to 250 or something, a significant change in the span of 2 hours. That a few insiders got this information. This is not good. This is the same kind of situation that we had for Derek Minner, who is under investigation right now. This is almost, if Dillashaw's shoulder injury had gotten out and that line had shifted significantly, this is the third time we've had some knowledge and some odd pre-fight situation happening, and 2 of them have had major betting implications. And this is, for the UFC that is pushing betting so hard, this is calamity right now. This is the Armageddon situation, because sports books are very careful. And if they have a whiff of something going on, boop, we're out.
Yeah, because you're not, when you're talking about sports books and stuff, you're talking about federal cases. You're talking about the full weight of the United States federal government law enforcement coming down upon you. And this gets into RICO issues. This gets into racketeering. This gets into some very, very serious things that you typically only hear about in gangster movies when you start playing around with sports books. The fact that John's kind of had that rug pulled from underneath of him at the time, I'm not that upset with that, because the commissions and regulatory boards, they're doing their investigations, and what they find, and they have to act. Like, if that's the case and you find that there is legit cause to keep this investigation going and dig deeper, well, sorry Johns, like, them's the breaks. Okay, you just gotta take that medicine. We've been treading on a very dangerous line with situations like this for quite some time, longer than I think we realize. When we think back at all the stories of fights that things have gone wrong, think about one of the greatest comeback victories in mixed martial arts history, Anderson Silva over Chael Sonnen at UFC, I believe it was 117. You know, had it gotten out that Silva was suffering a rib injury, what would that line look like? Fighters continually going out there compromised. We know it's a part of the sport, but when you're pushing betting so hard, should it be a part of the sport?
Well, it shouldn't be a secret part of the sport. There is a reason that football and basketball have an injury report. And in football, the injury report, it means something. Like probable, questionable, and doubtful, like actually mean something. They correspond to 25, 50, and 75% chance of not playing. And those things are tracked. Like, and the thing is, this is something that runs on public trust. Nothing has to be proven. Like their indictments don't have to come out of this. The only indictment that needs to happen is that the public needs to lose faith that there's a product trustworthy enough to bet on. If that evaporates, there don't have to be any cases. And that's what's happening right now.
Court of public opinion can weigh down and really wreck things. And that's, I don't feel good about it. Like, this is something that shouldn't happen. the way it's happening, because this is the worst possible thing. This is like of all the possible betting scandals, other than actual fix, which there have been in MMA history. We're getting into really, really uncharted and not good territory. And you don't, the problem with this is the sport is so young that it's just really hard to come back from even a possible black mark.
Yeah, this is one of those subjects where the media in our sport has been kind of quiet on a lot of this compared to, say, the Derek Lewis fallout, But I'm not ready to throw our colleagues under the bus for this, because this is a very, very, very complex situation that has a lot of moving parts. Quite frankly, we just don't know what's going on. But like you said, Jay, this is a public trust thing. This is bad. This is very, very, very bad. Kind of hard to look at those DraftKings ads with the same the same level of gusto as before. So I don't know what's going to come of this. We will find out more as investigations continue. But in the meantime, another wrinkle about this that I find kind of interesting. We've had similar situations as far as coaches being sort of blacklisted in combat sports. And this thought just occurred to me. Otherwise, I definitely would have prepared, the proper names. But I don't know if you guys remember the story of a boxing match. I believe it was like 83. Louis Castillo, and it was versus an Irish guy. I can't remember the Irish guy's name, but there was the glove fixing. It was when the
plaster Paris?
The plaster Paris,
okay.
And the light padding. Yep. His coach was banned by all of the boxing associations, but he still coached. It's just that he wasn't doing it in an official capacity. Apparently, he had a big hand in Zab Judah's rise, and some other prominent fighters. But I want to say his name was like Panama, if I remember the coach's name. But this guy was a fixture at the fights of his fighters, but he was just not in the corner. A very similar thing happens in mixed martial arts. Like, to say that any fight with James Krause as a coach or trainer, the fighter's barred, that probably only can apply to Glory MMA team members. How many trainers, just have pro athletes, the fighters just come through while they're in town, and they do, they'll spend a week here. They'll jump from ATT to whatever gym in Rufus Sport in Milwaukee. Like they'll bounce around to fit whatever needs of their personal life or the travel schedule, whatever the case may be. So this could possibly touch a lot more fighters than we realize. James Krause is a very popular name among the fight crowd. Even Laura Sanko is one of his students. Laura Sanko, who is on the broadcast team and sits in the fighter meetings and has a voice within the UFC, within the company. I mean, this can spread a lot further than we realize, or it could just be sort of the secret underbelly, like the Coach Panama, who is still doing his thing despite being banned by a lot of governing bodies. So
you're doing good, Ben. I can see you're keeping it together. You're doing a good thing here.
Let it fly, Ben. Bellator was also in action this past weekend, so we had some action as far as title picture was concerned. The lightweight division we will get to in just a second here, but the light heavyweights, Vadim Nemkov retains. He advances in the light heavyweight Grand Prix.
Wins it all, baby.
Yeah, with a win over Corey Anderson. Fellas, is he the best lightweight on the planet right now?
I think he is.
Light heavyweight, maybe.
Yeah, it's a wide open conversation to have, because obviously there are two promotions right now, all due respect to one championship, that actually has one of the best 205 pounders in the world plying his trade. There are two promotions right now that to have a pretty good claim at having the best light heavyweight division on the planet. If Corey Anderson had beaten Vadim Nemkov, I would have definitely made the case that he is the number one light heavyweight in the world. I mean, we're talking about a guy that knocked out Glover Teixeira, your last UFC light heavyweight champion. He's 1-1 with Jan Blachowicz, the champ before that. You know, he'd have a good case for it. And for Nemkov to come back just months down the road from a fight where he honestly was not winning at the time it ended in a no contest, and just to have made the adjustments to win in uncontroversial fashion, win probably 4 rounds, was eye-opening. And you look now at his resume. It's going to be tough going forward because we already know his next opponent is going to be Yoel Romero, so good luck holding on to that number one. But for now, yeah, I think Vadim Nemkov is the number one light heavyweight on the planet.
Light heavyweight is about one of, if not the only divisions where I can stack it up to the UFC. And I can go, okay, if you played the game, they're obviously the imaginary game that could never happen. It's even worse than a pound for pound discussion, is take the number 1, the number 2, the number 3 ranked fighters of each company and match them one against another. You know, just kind of have those contests. A lot of Bellators would stand up to the UFCs. And that's
and have.
And in many cases have. And some of them, and yeah, some of them have wins over these big names. And you look at the Bellator division at 205 and go, well, okay, let's look at the Grand Prix as it was initially announced. Who were the 8 competitors? Ryan Bader, Lyoto Machida, Corey Anderson, Dov Yags, Vadim Nemkov, Bill Davis, Anthony Johnson, Yoel Romero. Those were the 8 original competitors. Who of those names were not UFC veterans leaving the organization to go over there? Dov Yags and Nemkov. That means 6 of the 8 were UFC cast-outs, UFC let-goes, UFC, oops, oh crap, we should have signed him, UFC, they were past their prime, so we let them go. That kind of situation. So you can look at this and go, wow, this division is really good. Oh, wait a second. It's based on the UFC's number 3, number 6, number 9 guys that left the company or what have you. So this is the best analog we basically ever had of being able to measure how good Bellator is against the UFC on a division-by-division basis. Because we can't know. When Michael Chandler wins and loses against Brent Primus, we don't know, is Brent Primus that good? Is he the kind of guy that could stand up and give Rafael dos Anjos a run for his money? You know, a perennial top guy. We don't know that kind of situation. But in Bellator, we do. We know how good Corey Anderson was before leaving to get that kind of shot. So for Nemkov to beat Anderson, to beat Bader, to beat Davis twice, that's a really good resume, no matter what. And then you look at Yuri Prochaska, who has 3 wins. And I mean that in the 3 wins against, you know, you can really say, oh boy, that CB Dollaway win looks really nice on his resume. But he has the wins over Volkan, Dom Reyes, and of course Glover. Which is better depends on a lot of things, you know, because at the time, the guys that Yuri beat were ranked higher. But Reyes, what has happened lately, Volkan, what has happened lately, and Glover is, you know, 43 or whatever, how old he is, whereas Nemkov is beating guys that are, you know, the former Bellator champion that just held the belt before him in Davis, and the guy before him in Bader, and Corey Anderson, a top guy.
And worth noting that Bader and Davis were not let go because they were past their prime.
No,
they were not let go because they were on losing streaks. They were top 5 guys when they were let go. Just in the case of Bader, it's like, well, there's no way he gets back to another fight with John Jones. He costs too much to just occupy space and knock off other guys. So we got to let him go.
Yeah, it was the unrestricted free agent situation, right, where UFC didn't put a claim for him, but said if Bellator's, you know, throw the world at him, we'll give it to him.
Yeah, and then also too, those 2 names represent the people you had to get through to get the belt in the UFC. Like,
absolutely,
that's the rank and file, and that's something that Yuri doesn't have any claim to, because he didn't go through the rank and file to get there.
It's a really tough, just a very difficult kind of thing, because on the one hand, some of these fighters have declined a little bit, like Bader. Bader's wins to get there were like over Machida, so it's not like oh boy, let's really ring the bell that he's doing the whole thing. But at the same time, John Jones beat Ryan Bader and then fought Shogun Rua for the title. So Ryan Bader, the current heavyweight champion, who was a 2-division guy who went, I'm going to go back and have fun in this tournament too.
Yeah, and Bader also won the heavyweight belt and the heavyweight Grand Prix without getting a single significant strike landed on him. That says a lot.
Yeah, and he's not, he hits hard, he's strong, he's all the things. Yesterday, I gave it to Yuri Prochazka because I thought his wins over the number 1, number 5, and number 9 guys were better than wins over number 5, number 4, and number 11. This is the numbers of when they were ranked at the time, because it's really crazy to go, well, okay, he beat Volkan, but Volkan's not ranked now, so it doesn't. No, you can't work like that. It has to be contemporaneous, or otherwise the whole thing falls apart. But then I look at how Nemkov's won and how he almost lost. He was 5 seconds away from losing a technical decision, like 5 seconds. That's what it would have taken for the third round to conclude of his first fight with Corey Anderson, and he was losing. He was unequivocally down 30-27, maybe 30-26. Like, this is a really tough situation to look at, but it was a no contest, so it can't matter. But can it matter? I don't know. I'm going to decide this because I'm going way too long. I'm going to decide this. Heads, Yuri Prochazka. Tails, Vadim Nemkov. Yuri Prochazka wins.
We'll see on December 10th, because I'm going to hold judgment until then. Like, I don't. We were just so close to seeing Yuri lose to Glover.
Exactly.
I want to see what December 10th has to offer before I'm ready to declare either one of them the best light heavyweight on the planet. But I think the fact that we can point to someone outside of the UFC and say this might be the best in their division says a lot. That's not something that we get to say very often in this day and age in the sport. Like, we haven't consistently said that since Strikeforce. So I'm inclined to pay very close attention to the overall landscape of the light heavyweight picture now with this in mind. So let's move on to the lightweight division, because Usman Nurmagomedov continues the legacy of this family tree with a completely dominant win over Patricky Pitbull to capture the lightweight crown. Is there anyone on the Bellator roster that you see being able to dethrone him at lightweight?
No, and really, I don't see anybody on the Bellator lightweight roster other than AJ McKee and Patricio Pitbull even capable of taking a round off him.
One name.
I think Jay. I mean, I like where you're going with this, Jay. I like where you're going, because as far as the skill set is concerned, that is a very, very close match from a skill standpoint.
It is. It really is. Enough? Well, Benson Henderson is the number 2 ranked lightweight on a 2-fight win streak. And unless Tawfiq Masayev, who was the stand-up backup guy, who, by the way, is an exceptional talent, Masayev, of all the styles, I Sid the Outlaw, I like him, but I don't think he has what it takes. Shapley has not performed on the big stage. Primus, I don't have any thoughts of. Benson Henderson, better or worse, won a close enough decision against Usman Nurmagomedov, which, even though we thought that Henderson lost that fight, he was so close that I go, wow, then if he can barely get by Ben Henderson, good luck getting past Usman. and AJ McKee is going to fight Satoshi Souza. So, of all the names in the Bellator current ranked lightweight division, assuming they don't get a hot shot like oh hey Justin, I'm done with my UFC contract, I'm going to go play with Bellator, something weird like that. Give me the true pick. Give me Ben Henderson, win a split decision, and make the internet explode.
That would actually, you know what, Jay, I'm not ready to jump out there and agree with you, but
he looked real good against Peter Queally.
I don't think they're better. I don't think there's a better answer. I really don't think that there's a better answer. Like all the things that Patricky did wrong in that, I don't see Ben Henderson falling victim to. Nope. I don't see him being content to stay within kicking range and just absorb kicks the whole time. I don't see him being able to be taken down as easily. I just don't see that happening. And in fact, I see Ben Henderson trying to employ like the same sort of game plan against Nurmagomedov. Like this is a very strong wrestler, a very strong grappler who has a background in Taekwondo and is not shy of using his wide array of kicks to set up his wrestling. So that would be a very interesting style matchup, to say the least. I don't think he gets it done, but it would be something. It would be something. But I tell you, if I'm Bellator, and you guys might, just throw something at your camera if you're not liking what I'm going to say next. If I'm Scott Coker, I'm calling up Nate Diaz. I'm making this happen because, granted, I think Nate Diaz does not fare well against Nurmagomedov, but what a better way to put over this guy who just dominated one of your stars for the lightweight belt. And also there's a promotable backstory between both camps that you can throw out there.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that angle. Well, the thing I would run counter to that is that Bellator is going to be running a lightweight Grand Prix starting next year, in theory. So we do know that Usman's going to be running it. Like, you know how Vadim defends his title every step of the way?
Yeah.
Usman will be doing that, entering that kind of thing. So we might get like, I don't know, Usman versus a Peter Queally type, just to kind of ease things into the tournament. But give me Ben Henderson by split decision, but he doesn't actually win.
That would be hilarious. But Jay, this is combat sports. Like, the rules don't matter.
If Usman hit harder, here's what I'll say. Here's the last thing I'll say. If Usman hit harder, because we know he's got some knockouts on his resume, but they're all, except for Manny Murrow, and even Manny Murrow, I love Manny Murrow. I've been watching him for quite a long time, surprisingly enough. Just you don't have, oh yeah, you beat, mid-tier Gabriel Bino, or, I'm reading names off his Fight Finder. Ruslan Tuyakov, yay, he's 5-2. Yeah, that's cool. Good luck with that. I haven't seen his power on a high level that makes me think he could clip and hurt Ben Henderson and throw him out of his game. So yeah, I'm going to go crazy here. I don't think they're ever going to fight. I think Ben Henderson's going to retire before he gets to that fight. But yeah.
Yeah, hey, we've seen crazier things happen. And Ben Henderson has extended his projected lifespan in this sport longer than we initially gave him. But man, I'm calling Nate Diaz, and I don't give a damn about that lightweight Grand Prix. If you get a Nate Diaz and you make that fight happen,
he passed
let the Grand Prix exist on its own. And let those two guys do what they do and bring in a boatload of cash for Paramount and Bellator. That's what I said. All right, fellas. So I might as well go ahead and get the clock. Hopefully, Aliyah is here. So hopefully she does not yank out any cords and disrupt the show any more than Adonis just did. But we've got quick hits, and let's go ahead and get the clock going here. So we're going to put 10 seconds on. Ben, I guess I will begin with you. Yeah, baby. Yeah, that's another weapon. Let's put that down. How many wins is Waldo Cortes-Acosta away from getting matched against Andre Arlovsky?
2. He needs to fight the loser of Justin Tafa versus Parker Porter first, and then they have to bring back either Jorgen De Castro or Juan Adams. Then he can get the Arlovsky fight.
Oh, Juan Adams catching strays. All right. Jay, next one is up for you. Is Muslim Salikhov truly the king of Kung Fu?
Imagine, and I'm gonna steal a line from Duffy because you haven't heard it yet, audience. Imagine going to fight regularly in China and calling yourself the king of Kung Fu, and then hitting Melvin Gillard with a spinning hook kick. Why not? Let him have this one. He earned it.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm a sucker for anyone that acknowledges the existence of Kung Fu and MMA. Just love it. All right. Jay, would you mind asking a question?
I would. Jack Della Maddalena. You got to see his quick performance. He just beat the brakes off of Danny Roberts, knocked him out about 3 or 4 times. I think he knocked him out in that fight. So he's now won 13 in a row since starting his career with 2 losses. Does he have star potential for you, Ant Walker, or is welterweight just too damn crowded?
I think he has star potential as far as his output in the cage. Personality on the mic, I don't think so. That was a bad interview. And not even, and I'll disrespect the clock for a second. Not even in the Mark Hunt sense, where like Mark Hunt just oozes charisma. It somehow just stands there and says no, and the crowd goes nuts. Like it was like Jack didn't know what to say. It's like, so who's next? It was like marbles in his mouth. So
you're a minus 400 favorite, and you didn't have some shit prepared to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not even necessarily like you had to come out with like the Chael Sonnen script that was lifted from some obscure pro wrestling match in the 60s. We don't need that. But you could at least just had a name and then like said that name with some level of like clarity. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Or just be the annoying guy and go like this every time. Just,
Yeah.
Like, he wins his UFC debut and he goes,
Yeah,
he's like,
something.
Leon Edwards, you took everything I worked for. And then we go, what? What did you do?
Huh? Yeah, or just confuse us,
That because we'll be talking about it, being like, what the hell? Like, did he just? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, do that at least, or do like Kamzat and like make up title shots that don't exist. I don't know, something. All right, fellas. So I'm gonna put a minute on the clock, and we're probably gonna disrespect this clock, and it's worth disrespecting for this one. Ryan Bader set to rematch Fedor Emelianenko in a which is billed as Fedor's retirement fight. Is this the one that you would have made for Fedor's last run, the last run for the last Emperor?
No. This, I literally, any of his fights since the Dan Henderson fight 11 years ago would have made a great retirement fight for him. Like, retire off of beating Monson, Ishii, Hizzo, Jaideep Singh, Fabio Maldonado. Like, have your Rocky moment where you got the crap beat out of you. Fight probably should have been stopped. Probably should have been a draw. You got a 10-7 round put on you by a light heavyweight, like, in your home country. Retire off that. Like, know yourself. Count your blessings. Knock out Frank Mir, another kind of legend of your same era. Hell, knock out Chael Sonnen. Give the man a hug. Invite him over for a bowl of borscht and retire. Just why this one? At least retire off the first Bader fight and just realize that you didn't have it anymore. This is going to be miserable. It sucks.
Yeah, this is pretty bad. Like, and then once again, with all the available names out there that are not under contract, you mean you couldn't call up JDS? You mean JDS wouldn't have accepted a phone call from you, Scott?
He's not coming out in public again until he gets his nose back from Jack Della Maddalena. We couldn't ask Anderson to run it back at MMA just one time so we can get that Fedor versus Anderson Silva fight. Like, there are so many things that could have been done here. Ryan Bader, like, this was a fight that had no, like, we don't need a continued resolution from this conflict. Like, I know he's long since been inactive, but Josh Barnett,
Yes.
wasn't accepting a phone call. You think you could have tapped Ryan Couture on the shoulder and say, "Hey, I don't know his heart issue. Maybe I don't know if he's got lingering heart issues from the heart attack he suffered a couple years ago." It just seems like there was a better way than Ryan Bader. Like anybody, or if you just went to someone who you know is going to lose and has no name value, but Fedor gets to go out on a win. Or potentially going on the win, or potentially you can make a star on his back. I don't know, but Ryan Bader ain't it. Ryan Bader's not. If Ryan Bader goes out there and floors Fedor, which is most likely what's going to happen, will he gain anything from it other than another W on his record and the paycheck that he's contracted to get?
Another heavyweight title defense? Like that's, I feel so gross. Like, seriously, I created this because I don't know what happened to the other one. I'm kind of disappointed I didn't fill it in because I didn't have the time. There are so many fights that are fun. Like, all that we're doing here is either... Yes, I know.
Oh, I just forgot to turn it off.
Either Scott Coker just said, fine, we'll give you whatever you ask for, and Fedor said, I want that one back, and he wants his rematch. But that'll screw up your division. And the heavyweight division has already had quite a lot of issues. You know, you're going to be, okay, he wins. He knocks out Bader. Then you have a champion that lost by knockout to a, I don't know, just conservatively a 46-year-old man on his last vestiges of hope. And then he retires, so there's no champion. And the upside is he gets a win over a guy he already squished. It's a no. I mean, yes, you can give Fedor a belt if he wins, but he never cared about that, or he would have pushed more championship fights in Pride. Like, this is a guy who defended this Pride heavyweight belt twice,
Yeah,
and he was more proud of his WAMA belt than his Pride belt, which, by the way, the WAMA belt went on sale on eBay for like $1,500. And I don't know who has it now, but it's very sad. No, give me any other. Give me Roy Nelson.
That I was just about to say that name. Where's Roy Nelson
over Ryan Bader. Let's get weird, but we're not. We're going to try and, I don't know, be legitimate. I don't know. I really don't know what.
If Fedor wins, does he rescind the retirement and we get a trilogy?
Gosh, I hope not. Because how fast he fights, he'll be fighting at 48, and we don't want to see that, because that means he'll be boxing Vitor Belfort in a year, and I don't want that either.
I'll say, where's
give
Pat
me
Barry?
Fedor versus Vitor. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Vitor, Pat Barry,
Tito Ortiz.
I would take Czech Congo over this. Too far?
I don't want a 3 rounds of clinching majority decision win for Congo. That would hurt more than most other things. But like, Fedor's the number 3 guy on Bellator. Yeah, he just ranked number 3 right now, right under Linton Vassell. And I don't want to see that fight. Oh my god.
Yeah, this is categorically bad decision making here by matchmaking. I can't believe that there weren't. I can understand if you couldn't get a Barnett, you couldn't
give him Ben Henderson.
Hey, if
I'm Christian Lee, they weigh the same now.
Yeah.
If I'm Scott Coker, I'm calling Nick Diaz. All right. It is time now for the greatest title segment in all of media history. I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons, where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not. Since we last met, Jay, I'll begin with you. What's your I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
On December 19th, Santa Claus is going to fight 2 elves. What? What the hell did I just say? Fight Circus 5. Fight Circus 5. The 12 Fights of Christmas is what they're going to be putting on. The wonderful mad maniacs at Full Metal Dojo that I can't not love. Hanukkah Gone Wrongica, an homage to Scrooged, is the name of this event. And they're going to put on 12 matches, and I say matches because they're not necessarily all fights, but allegedly the main event is going to be Santa Claus against 2 elves, which is, they're going to be dressed up and fighting each other.
Is it making no money?
I'd probably make no money at the Elves, I'm sure of it. And the guy might be like Panda Banks, who's got a big belly, so he might dress up as Santa Claus, something like that. Then we got the Wheel of Violence, which we know and love. A tattoo on the line fight, which I think means a Muay Thai fight, and the loser gets a tattoo of whatever the winner chooses. 2 bodybuilders will box each other, so there'll be big steroid men going and hitting each other. They're going to bring back phone booth fights, so that's cool. They're going to bring back foot in the tire boxing. So in other words, you have to have 1 foot in a tire, not like a farmer's tractor tire, like a tire, and you're going to have to beat on each other. So I mean, kickboxing, of course. Macapadzilla is coming back to defend their 2 belt title, which is glorious. They are ripping on slap fights by having a tag team OnlyFans model slap fight contest. There's a chef contest, which I'm hoping it means the chefs cook something and then fight, or they fight each other and then cook something, because that might even be more fun. Leg wrestling championship karaoke battle, and something where we're not sure what's going to happen. So it is the grab bag of everything that works for Fight Circus, and I am really wishing I weren't having to cover UFC Fight Night, Cannonier versus Strickland, to be able to cover Fight Circus 5 live, because I think I like that fight card better, and I like Jake Matthew versus Matthew Semmelsberger as a prelim fight, so that's saying something.
All right, so I guess I'll give a couple of I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moments this week. First up, please, baby girl, please put the mouse down. Yeah, I know, baby. My daughter already, or my son, one of them, if not both of them, already broke my Iron Man mouse. So this is just cannon fodder. And then she was attempting to grab the one that I actually use now, and no, not cool. I don't want to keep buying these things every week. So anyway, my I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment number 1 comes from welterweight / middleweight. I guess last won a welterweight fight at middleweight, Khamzat Chimaev, who went on Twitter yesterday to say that he signed a bout agreement to fight for the middleweight title against Alex Pereira on December 10th, as in like December 10th, 2022, as in less than a month removed from Pereira's 5-rounder against Israel Adesanya. No. The UFC must be using these bout agreements as contract leverage again, because this makes no sense. And no, Chimaev, not happening.
I think he's just making stuff up. I don't think he's actually. I don't think that's a real bout agreement, because the UFC would. Like Pereira might be suspended until then. I just hope that Chimaev, who's emerged as more of a goofy personality than we initially thought. Like, he's done a lot of just bozo things in the last couple of months. This seems like a pretty big step lower than what we're accustomed to with him. I'm sorry I have to interrupt you. Pereira is suspended for 30 days. Period. And that's effective right after UFC 281.
Okay, so this is not even.
That means the suspension will be still in effect
for like 2 or 3 more days or something.
2 or 3 more days after the event happened, and it's yeah. So that's not.
In unrelated news, UFC 282 has now been moved to December 15th.
In Inglewood, California.
Yeah, Inglewood. Yeah, I know, right? Maybe they'll credential me again. So, just bozo behavior on Twitter. My next, I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment comes courtesy of my good friend of the show, Oscar Willis, who made his mixed martial arts debut over the weekend at Tuff-n-Uff in Las Vegas. Picked up a win, a unanimous decision win. I watched the fight like 4 times. When I should have been doing tape study for this show, I was watching my boy fight. Fantastic. Man, Oscar's got a chin on him. He seems to like getting hit. I think he's going to do this again. I haven't talked to him yet, so I'm going to reach out to him again today, see if he is in the mood to talk. I know his legs were battered after the fight. Shout out to Jose Youngs, another friend of the show, for filming the whole thing and going live on Oscar's Instagram. So that was pretty cool to watch. I'm very proud of my friend and can't wait to have him back on the show and just have our conversation. So he was showing me, like, during his camp, he was sending me sparring footage. So I was getting like every other week I would get like an update of what his sparring was looking like. And so I am not surprised at all that he got the win. Not surprised at all that he was tenderizing his opponent's legs with those kicks. Oscar kicks very hard. I've held pass for him a few times. He can kick.
Oscar versus Leiden, Rise New Year's Eve. Let's make it happen.
Oh, I would hate to see that.
I know.
I would hate to see. I mean, they would be able to fight in the same weight class, but
I was going to say it would have to be Ryzen because it'd be some open weight shit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, the thing is, like, Casey would be able to make 155. He's walking around like 170 now, or 165 or something like that. Oscar didn't cut much to get to one. In fact, I think he weighed in like 153 or something.
155ish. Yeah. So they're not. It's not.
But the thing is, like, they're very good friends. I know they were training together, and I would hate to see that because they're two good friends of mine. That would be difficult to watch. And both of them hit very hard. I've absorbed blows from both, and like, I don't want to see them do that to each other. All right, gentlemen. So really, this is the only game in town this week. PFL, the PFL finale for the season. Oh no, baby! I know we got $1 million check on the line in 6 different divisions, and but we got some other news here. This is a pay-per-view now. Pay-per-view available on ESPN Plus. $50 pay-per-view, I might add, on Black Friday. Fellas, I know you've got SureDog expense accounts, and you can go ahead and write off these pay-per-view events. But outside of that, would you be shelling out $50 for this? I had to give you another chance to use it, Jay.
Props matter. Rest in peace, Gallagher. Yeah, man. This fight card. If this is a $50 fight card, then what does $50 buy you anymore? I know we can blah blah inflation, blah blah, all that kind of thing like that. But if this is $50 for this event, for this. Like, there are 6 titles and they're throwing $6 million at them. So I guess they're trying to make some money back. And maybe they're hoping the price point is so high that they're going to get the people that are going to buy no matter what. But there can't be more than like 14 of those people out there. Like, this is PFL that struggled to have ratings all year for free events on ESPN. This is a company that held events where the average ratings of ESPN were higher than the PFL ratings, which means that people that would have the shows have ESPN on in the barbershop, PFL would come on and they would change the channel. Like, this is the Buffalo Wild Wings going, nah, look, there's some college basketball. Let's flip that on instead.
Let's see what that lacrosse tournament's all about.
Let's see what the home wrecking people that like to take the sledgehammers to the walls and flip the houses are doing. Like, this ain't it. And I think we're never going to know how many pay-per-views this draws, ever. We are never going to find out how it's sold, but we're going to be told it's sold well, and that's going to be crazy, and no one will believe it.
So it'll be an embarrassingly low number.
Yeah, you remember when BKFC had Lobov versus Paulie Malignaggi? They're like, it's crazy. It's like 14,000 buys for a $20 pay-per-view, and that was the BKFC record. It's Ben. Will PFL's pay-per-view sell more than the 14,000 buys of BKFC's?
No. I think 10,000 would be a good goal.
Yeah, I don't even think this is going to be heavily pirated either. Like, the BKFC event, I am absolutely certain that was pirated heavily because there was such a freak show element to the whole thing. You had the outer sphere of Conor McGregor's social circle involved. So, there was public attention to it. There were people who were just curious as to what was going on. And Paulie Malignaggi was not a nobody in boxing. Like, he was a bigger name, and was on several pay-per-view cards throughout his career, fought some top name people. So there was some level of intrigue to that. But this, I mean, especially when the main event is a fight that we saw a few years ago. Granted, that maybe that fight looks different now. We'll get to that in a second here, but What would you price this at, fellas? $50 is way too high, in my opinion, and it sounds like you guys share that opinion. How much would you pay for this?
Zero. I wouldn't price this at all, and that's not a particular slam on PFL even. Like I said this on the PFL preview that I just recorded last night. Nobody other than the UFC has made pay-per-view work in the long term. And in fact, most mixed martial arts promotions that have tried, it has immediately preceded their demise as a going concern. Hell, the UFC's own pay-per-views aren't worth $50 a lot of the time. Like, even if I stipulate, okay, UFC, you're the industry leader. If you tell me your best cards are worth $75, okay, they're worth $75. The market is yours. Well, if UFC 277 was worth $75, UFC 278 was not worth $50. So even the UFC's own product isn't worth $50 a significant amount of the time. Like, if I didn't have to watch this for work, I don't know, I guess I'd throw $15 at it. Like, I've thrown $15 at curiosity cards before.
Yeah, that sounds about a fair amount there. I'm just not understanding the thinking here with this card being the pay-per-view at this price point. Like, I get if the finale you wanted to make it a pay-per-view, but that would be after having a season with exemplary ratings that show that, okay, people do care about this product. When people struggle to watch it and you have it going on for free, then attaching $50 to it does not make it any more valuable. It just makes it a burden. And then we're going in holiday shopping season while we're on the heels of recession. It's like, read the room. This is not $50 worth to a fight fan. Even the most dedicated of fight fans, like Kaposa's probably not paying $50 for this.
So I'm going to give a shout out to Jason Burgos because he's our boy. And he wrote this article for The Underground when it was, anyway. And he reported on PFL 2021 championship ratings. 166,000 people watched it on ESPN on the October, whatever day it was. That it was and it was a huge drop from the year before. And it had Kayla Harrison in the main event, winning $1 million. So the lineup is very similar, and they couldn't draw 200,000 people to watch the championships last year. And it has been objectively worse from not only from a finish rate standpoint, but from a result standpoint, from a homegrown star standpoint. Delano Taylor made his way to the championships. I like Delano Taylor a lot, but he made his way to the championships off the heels of one win during the regular season, and he fought in the Contender, their Challenger Series, and won by eye injury. Remember, the guy's eye was all jacked up. So that was his path to $1 million. And so you aren't going, oh boy, this is the greatest. I can't wait to see Ray Cooper versus Magomedov. Oh wait, Delano Taylor, Sadowasi. Shout out to Sadowasi, who is the grizzled veteran that finally might make it. But if PFL's not getting seats, here's a good way to know. If PFL is giving away a single ticket, comping a single ticket, because PFL always does that. They fill seats. They actually have advertisements with seat fillers. I haven't checked this week. Then they have no business charging $50 to watch this event if you are handing tickets away to people. And considering I, with no knowledge of this situation whatsoever, other than my own wisdom and knowledge of the sport itself, know that they're definitely giving seats away for this event. It's not gonna work. I would like to correct myself. There were 18,000 buys on the BKFC, and it was a $40 pay-per-view. I don't recall that. I remember it being cheaper. Maybe it was because it was like day of or whatever, but I remember it being a cheaper pay-per-view. But if I didn't have to watch it for work purposes, I would probably take the night off.
Yeah, and that's another thing I want to ask you about, gentlemen, because granted, you guys pretty much have to watch this. I'm going to try to watch some of it if I can, probably after the fact, because it comes down to you guys are working on deadline. I don't have any content planned as far as PFL is concerned. Maybe watching it will spark something, and I get to write a script or something like that. But I highly doubt it. There it is. But I don't know. I don't know. But I'll know this though. Day after Thanksgiving, family around, some good leftover food. Might be a little liberal with that bottle of Proper 12 that I've got in the house. Am I going to want to watch, a 12 fight card that is most likely going to be horribly paced? Or do I want to, convince my wife that Die Hard is a Christmas movie?
With 6 championship fights, which means 6 25-minute
potential
offerings.
5-round, 5-minute fights. I don't know, gentlemen. This just does not sound like the way that most people want to spend their well-earned time off on a holiday.
No, it's not. It's I don't know how PFL is in business, and I mean that with all due disrespect. I don't understand how the business model doesn't make sense. The money they don't generate, the revenue they don't get. The only money that I know that is an income stream is from ESPN, but we know it's not very good because they're having to farm out and sell different rights to different places on networks I have never heard of in my life. Have you ever heard of Xumo, XUMO, a cable-ish internet streaming platform? I have never heard of it until I got the press release saying that they've signed with Xumo to show a PFL channel. There's a PFL channel.
You know what? That's probably what did it say what country that's specific to, or
we can watch it right now.
Okay, then that's probably on like I have a Samsung TV that has like Samsung Plus or something, and you've got
those little
like 1,000 different channels. Like they got like a Walking Dead universe channel. Yeah. They've got like an Impact Wrestling channel. Yeah, I was watching Impact Wrestling last night. Actually, I was like, I haven't watched pro wrestling like that in a long time. It was great. But there was it was like a Fight Alliance channel. I was watching some obscure like K1 fight or something like that.
Similar to that.
It's probably something like that, where if you don't turn on whatever app you watch on your TV, or you don't go to YouTube TV, or you don't have it connected to like a real antenna or a cable service, then that's what you get, like the default channels. Okay. I'll check if I have Xumo. I don't know what this girl wants. Maybe she wants to hear potential upset picks. Out of these 6 divisions that have $1 million up for grabs, which one do you see the most likely to have an upset?
Would you guys believe that of all of her professional fights, and she has had 15 so far, and she will be entering into her 16th, Kayla Harrison will be the least significant betting favorite at minus 600. And because she was like minus 610 or 615 or something against Brittany Elkin in her pro debut, she has been a betting favorite above that every fight until now. And why do I mention that? Because Larissa Pacheco is going to knock her out. Yeah, you heard it here first, and or not first. Now, I know that Larissa Pacheco, her striking is rudimentary. Her footwork is awkward. Her approaches are very line-based, so lateral movement can fluster her. But she hits hard enough to stun. She doesn't have the stinging power, the irritating, the flustering power. She has the power where she hits, I don't know, name. I think, what was it?
Everybody who's fought in the last 3 years.
Elena Kolesnik. She hit her, and Kolesnik did the blinking out, whoa. The Chris Tucker, which one of y'all kicked me kind of thing. Like the absolute confusion in the face of, oh my gosh. And unless Kayla Harrison spams takedowns for 25 minutes, Pacheco's going to catch her and put her out, and then PFL's going to shut down.
I wouldn't be that surprised by that. I mean, I went on a pretty lengthy rant on the preview about Pacheco's chances being higher than people seem to be giving her credit for. I flat out picked upsets in 2 of these. Like, I don't even think they're the outside chance. I picked Delano Taylor to beat Sadabusi. I picked Omari Akhmedov to beat Rob Wilkinson on this preview. Just in the case of Akhmedov, I think it's a strength of schedule thing. Like, Akhmedov's, like, the people he's fought over the last 3 or 4 years, just such a higher level of competition than the people Wilkinson has fought. Of course, Wilkinson looked like a killer. The only real thing that gives me pause is that Wilkinson's going to be a lot bigger in the cage. And C versus Taylor feels like more of a coin flip to me, but I see Taylor as the more aggressive guy and the guy with more one-shot finishing power. So I think we either get a case where he hurts him bad and wins a round definitively, or maybe finishes him, or if we don't get a finish, we get a real fun kickboxing match, most of which takes place with Sadabusi backing right into the cage, and that just doesn't look as good to the judges.
Yeah, I was kind of feeling you on the Sabado side thing and Taylor fight, because Taylor's aggression, it will negate a lot of those kicks. So if he comes out there and he just puts pressure on, Sai will not be able to throw those kicks with freedom, and that just opens up the possibility of him taking one of those power punches, or the judges just not smiling upon what he's done if he sees it. So that's probably my pick. I guess she doesn't agree.
Disagree with my Kale Harrison pick.
Yeah, maybe, but you know what? I'm not mad at the Pacheco pick. I'm not mad at that, and quite frankly, I like the chaos. That's what I'd like to see. So, yeah,
I would have picked Pacheco flat out if I had any confidence in her gas tank. Now that she is this 160-pound tank.
Yeah, I mean, there's the question, and here is a real question. And why do I know it's a question? Because it was a question last year. Or the 2019, and no, last year. Yeah, she missed. Yeah, 2019. She missed weight and was kicked out of the tournament. She missed weight
last year. Yeah.
Yeah. She missed weight. And she was kicked out of the tournament altogether for the finals. Yeah. So that I am more concerned about that than I am about her chances against Kayla Harrison, and I don't know why. I like Kayla Harrison just fine. Like she's done good work against who she's faced.
I compared her to Brock Lesnar.
But I think that there's going to be that chin check.
She's moment. Brock Lesnar.
When she gets that when Larissa Overeem walks her down and hits her with that knee in the gut, and she rolls around and does the dance thing, you watch.
Yeah, Lesnar obviously had unmatched physical tools. He had a physicality that just literally nobody else could match, and a background in an ancillary sport that nobody could really question those credentials. But just because of the way he was built, his striking always looked awkward. Like, I couldn't hit it like 1/10 as hard as Brock Lesnar, but I promise you I can throw you a more tactical right cross than Brock after like training in MMA exclusively for 8 years. Just like the way his arms and shoulders were built, he never looked more than awkward as a striker. And I feel that way about Harrison.
Yeah. Like when you have shoulders that wide, it's just like the distance that your body has to cover. It's just going to look weird. It's never going to look that fluid. I think also too, man, this has been a very interesting year for dominant champions in mixed martial arts. We've seen some very surprising things happen. We just saw Israel Adesanya get knocked out. We saw Amanda Nunes, granted, I think that was the end of 2021, but we saw Amanda Nunes fall in the not too distant past. We saw Kamaru Usman get slept. We saw Charles Oliveira get absolutely dominated in the realm that we thought he would excel in.
We saw Valentina Shevchenko, probably the most dominant fighter in the sport, period, come closer to losing than she has since dropping to 125.
I scored it for Santos. Yeah, when I watched it live and covered it for Sherdog.
Yeah, this is an odd year or an odd time period to be a dominant champion in mixed martial arts. And when we start talking about you with that air of invincibility, that's when it comes. Kayla Harrison certainly has that about her. She has that air of invincibility. I mean, the closest person we can think of to her, with her background and the way she's dominated competition, probably Ronda Rousey. When we thought about Ronda Rousey as like the untouchable, she got touched. This is sort of the perfect case for like perfect storm for that to happen. Like you've got a power striker, someone who can put you out with one shot. You've got someone that they fought before that they could very easily overlook. You've got someone who's been very comfortable in their dominance. This could be it. And plus, I love the chaos. I would love the chaos.
It would be some chaos.
It would certainly be chaos.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, so I guess Black Friday, we'll find out. I might find out a little later. You guys are going to be working, so
I'll be working.
Yeah, you'll be
running
working.
play-by-play of that rig.
I'm going to try to look for this Zumo channel, and maybe I'll put it on while the kids are creating chaos in the living room as they have in this room while we were recording. Fellas, I think that'll do it for this edition of the Living Death Show. Remember to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Ben and Jay, you can find their work on sherdog.com. They'll have plenty of PFL championship coverage for you to digest this week. If you are one of these savages that's going to wave a Ulysses S. Grant in the air and throw it at Ray Sefo, you can find me soon on MMA On Point. It's a little turnaround time for when things are turned in and whatnot. So I've got my script, my first script back. I should be done writing it tonight or tomorrow. And we'll see what happens. So stay beautiful, stay positive, stay with $50 to spare for mixed martial arts, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.